ladies and gentlemen. They told you it's selfish to put yourself first. They told you life is about sacrifice, about giving until there's nothing left. But here's the truth. No one dares to say aloud, if you do not take care of yourself first, every sacrifice you make will eventually become a silent cry for help. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And yet, most people are running around, bone dry, wondering why life feels so heavy. Putting yourself first is not an act of ego, it is an act of survival. It is the quiet rebellion against a world that benefits from you being tired, distracted, and compliant. When you protect your time, your energy, and your mind, you begin to see life differently. You stop being reactive to other people's chaos and start living in alignment with your own vision. Every no you speak becomes a yes to something better. Every boundary you set becomes a wall against the forces that drain you. And with each step, the guilt fades, replaced by a calm certainty. You were never here to be everything for everyone. When you put yourself first, you don't just change your schedule. You change your relationships, your health, your dreams, your entire destiny. People will resist it. Some will call you selfish. Let them. You're not here to meet their approval. You're here to meet your purpose. And here's the most life-altering truth. Once you live like this, there is no going back. The moment you experience the freedom of honoring yourself above the noise of the world, you will never again trade it for the prison of people-pleasing. Put yourself first, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now, because the life you want, the life you deserve, has been waiting for you to choose it. Most people have been conditioned to believe that putting yourself first is selfish. The word itself carries a shadow in our minds, as if it is laced with arrogance, pride, or disregard for others. But this idea is not truth. It is programming. It is something you were taught to keep you compliant, available, and endlessly giving, even when your own spirit was running on fumes. The world has a strange way of praising the one who sacrifices everything. Yet, it falls silent when that same person breaks under the weight of exhaustion. And so, you are fed this idea that selflessness means constant surrender, and selfishness means prioritizing yourself. But in reality, there is a vast difference between being self-absorbed and being self-aware. To put yourself first is to recognize that you are the root of everything you give to the world. If the root is unhealthy, the tree cannot bear good fruit. You cannot expect to bring light to others while standing in your own darkness. When you take the time to nourish your body, mind, and spirit, you are not withdrawing from life. You are strengthening the part of you that participates in it. This is not about turning your back on the people you love. It's about ensuring that your presence in their lives is full, intentional, and powerful. Think of it this way. Every day, you wake up with a certain amount of energy, like a bank account. Every decision, every conversation, every task is a withdrawal. If you spend that energy recklessly, giving to every request and every demand without checking the balance, eventually you end up overdrawn. And when you are overdrawn, you begin to resent the very people you are trying to help. You start to operate from a place of obligation instead of love. And that is where bitterness grows quietly in the shadows. Society has done a remarkable job of making people feel guilty for investing in themselves. It celebrates the one who stays late at work, misses their meals, and sacrifices sleep. It applauds the one who puts everyone else's needs before their own, as if the ability to endure neglect is a badge of honor. But there is no honor in abandoning yourself. It is not a sign of virtue to constantly drain your own well. It is a sign of misplaced priorities. When you put yourself first, you are not dismissing others. You are redefining how you show up for them. You begin to approach life from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. Your yes becomes valuable because it comes from a genuine place, not from pressure or guilt. And the people who truly love you will understand this because they will see the difference in your energy, your presence, and your joy. Those who do not understand may call you selfish, But that's because your boundaries disrupt the convenience they once enjoyed. Putting yourself first is an act of courage because it forces you to confront the fear of disapproval. It means accepting that some people will not like your choices. They will accuse you of changing, and they will be right. You are changing. You are no longer the person who says yes while silently screaming no inside. You are no longer the person who trades your dreams for the comfort of others. You are no longer the person who sacrifices your own health for the sake of appearances. You are choosing a different path, one that demands honesty, discipline, and self-respect. The misconception of selfishness is dangerous because it keeps people small. It convinces them that the noble thing to do is to serve until there is nothing left, to work until they collapse, to smile while their spirit is breaking. But the truth is, when you place yourself at the center of your life, not as the only thing that matters, but as the foundation, everything else begins to improve. Your relationships gain depth because you have the capacity to listen, to engage, to love without resentment. Your work improves because you are no longer burning out in silence. Your health strengthens because you finally treat your well-being as a priority instead of an afterthought. There is nothing selfish about ensuring that you are strong enough to carry what life asks of you. There is nothing selfish about protecting your mental peace. There is nothing selfish about creating time for your passions, your rest, and your growth. In fact, it is the opposite. It is the most selfless thing you can do. Because when you take care of yourself first, you become a better friend, a better partner, a better leader, and a better human being. When someone tells you that putting yourself first is selfish, smile gently and remember, they are speaking from a place of misunderstanding. They have been taught the same lesson you once believed, but you know better now. You know that you are the root of everything you give, and if the root dies, the tree dies with it. You know that you cannot light another's path if your own flame has gone out. And you know, deep in your bones, that the most powerful way to change your life forever is to stop apologizing for making yourself a priority. Because the truth is simple. The world does not benefit from your exhaustion. It benefits from your clarity, your strength, and your vitality. And those things can only come when you are brave enough to put yourself first, without guilt, without apology, and without fear. Every day you wake up with a limited supply of something more valuable than money, more precious than gold, and more irreplaceable than time itself, your energy. It is the invisible currency that fuels every thought, every action, and every interaction. The way you spend it determines not just how your day will unfold, but how your entire life will take shape. Yet most people move through life as if this currency is infinite, as if they can keep spending without consequence, without ever stopping to ask themselves, is this worth the cost? Your energy is not just about physical stamina, it is the mental focus you give to your work, the emotional presence you bring to your relationships, and the spiritual alignment that makes you feel alive. Every conversation, every decision, every task either deposits energy back into your account or withdraws from it. And if you are not mindful, you will spend your most valuable resource on things that drain you rather than sustain you. Imagine for a moment that your energy is like a bank account. Each morning you wake up with a certain balance. You cannot borrow from tomorrow, and you cannot magically create more once it's gone. Every request you agree to, every problem you absorb that isn't yours, every minute you give to pointless distractions, it all comes with a price. And when you give without intention, you end up overdrawn, running on empty, wondering why life feels heavy and why joy seems so far away. The tragedy is that many people live their entire lives in this constant overdraft. They give their energy freely to anyone who asks, without ever questioning whether that person has earned the right to it. They stay in conversations that go nowhere, relationships that take more than they give, and environments that feed on their strength without ever replenishing it. And then they wonder why they feel tired even after rest, why they feel stuck even after working hard. You have to become the gatekeeper of your own energy. Not everyone deserves your attention. Not every situation deserves your emotional investment. You must decide consciously and unapologetically where your energy goes, because the truth is, whatever you water will grow. If you pour your energy into drama, you will grow more chaos. If you pour it into self-doubt, you will grow more insecurity. But if you invest it in growth, in purpose, in peace, those things will multiply. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that you cannot save everyone. You cannot be the battery that keeps everyone else running while you slowly fade. There are people who will drain you without remorse, not out of malice, but because they have not learned to generate their own energy. And if you allow it, they will keep coming back to you like a bottomless well. The problem is you are not a bottomless well. You are a human being with limits, and when those limits are ignored, burnout becomes inevitable. Protecting your energy requires boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates to ensure that only the right people and the right priorities come in. You must learn to say no without guilt, to walk away without explanation, to rest without apology. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom. They are the practices of someone who understands that their energy is the foundation upon which everything else in life is built. Think about the moments when you felt most alive, when your mind was clear, your body felt light, and your spirit felt unshakable. In those moments, you had energy to give. And because you had it, you could be present, creative, compassionate, and strong. That state of being is not a luxury. It's the natural result of spending your energy intentionally. The problem is that many people chase this state while simultaneously bleeding energy into things that sabotage it. Start asking yourself, does this interaction give me energy or take it away? Does this commitment bring me closer to the life I want or pull me further from it? Is this worth the cost? You've been taught to treat them as obligations, but they are choices. And once you see them as choices, you can choose differently. Energy is the currency of change. If you want to transform your life, you must first transform where your energy flows. Pour it into the habits that strengthen you. Spend it on the people who inspire you. Invest it in the dreams that keep you awake at night. And, just as importantly, stop spending it on the things that keep you small, distracted, and weary. You are not obligated to bankrupt yourself for the comfort of others. You are not here to be endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly giving until there's nothing left of you. The most powerful thing you can do for yourself and for everyone who truly matters is to spend your energy where it multiplies, where it grows, where it builds the life you want. Because once you learn to guard this currency, you will stop living in a constant state of depletion and start living in a state of abundance. And that's when everything changes. Boundaries are not a punishment for others. They are an act of love for yourself. They are the invisible lines that protect your time, your energy, and your peace. Without them, you leave the door to your life wide open, and anything or anyone can walk in and take what they please. Most people think boundaries are about keeping people out, but in truth, they are about protecting what's sacred within. They are not about rejection. They are about preservation. They are how you decide what stays in your life and what must be left outside. The absence of boundaries leads to the erosion of self-respect. When you constantly say yes to things you don't want to do, you send a message to yourself and to others that your needs are negotiable, that your time is secondary, and that your feelings don't matter as much as someone else's comfort. Over time, this creates a quiet resentment, a simmering frustration that leaks into your interactions and poisons your joy. You start feeling invisible, not because the world has ignored you, but because you've allowed yourself to become an afterthought in your own life. Setting boundaries is not about being cold or distant. It's about being honest. It's about saying, this is where I end and where you begin. It's about recognizing that you are not responsible for carrying the weight of other people's emotions, decisions, or mistakes. You can care deeply without carrying endlessly. You can be kind without being used. You can be compassionate without being drained. But all of that requires the courage to say no, when your spirit knows it cannot afford another yes. One of the reasons people struggle with boundaries is fear. The fear of disappointing others, the fear of conflict, the fear of being seen as selfish. But here's the truth. Every time you compromise your boundaries to keep the peace, you create a war inside yourself. You might avoid confrontation on the outside, but inside, you might avoid confrontation on the outside, but inside, your mind becomes restless and your heart grows heavy. You may avoid losing others, but in the process, you lose yourself. Boundaries are a declaration of value. When you set them, you are telling the world, I am worth protecting. My time matters. My energy is not up for auction. And when you live by them, you start attracting people who respect you, not for what you give them, but for who you are. Those who only valued you for your compliance will drift away, and that is not a loss. That is a clearing, a making of space for the people and experiences that actually align with your worth. Think of a garden without a fence. Anything can wander in, animals, weeds, careless footsteps, and destroy the beauty you've worked to create. The fence is not there to keep beauty from spreading. It's there to protect what you've nurtured so it can grow strong enough to share. Your boundaries work the same way. They give your life the conditions it needs to flourish. It's also important to understand that boundaries are not set once and forgotten. They require maintenance, reinforcement, and sometimes adjustment. As you grow, your boundaries will change because what you need to protect will change. In some seasons, you may need to guard your time fiercely. In others, your mental space will require the most protection. But in every season, the core principle remains the same. You cannot give your best if you are constantly being depleted. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries, even if they don't fully understand them at first. The ones who resist, who push back, who try to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself, these are the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They are not angry because you've done something wrong. They are angry because you've stopped doing something that served them at your expense. To set a boundary is to take back control of your life. It is to choose consciously where your attention goes, who has access to you, and how much of yourself you are willing to give. And here's the paradox. When you have strong boundaries, your relationships often improve. Not because you are giving more, but because what you give comes from a place of genuine willingness, not silent obligation. You show up fully because you are not showing up everywhere. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, but they are also a form of self-love. They are also a form of self-love. They are you saying to yourself, I matter enough to protect my well-being. I matter enough to decide what I will and will not allow. And when you live like this, you stop resenting others for taking too much because you've learned that no one can take what you do not give. The truth is, you cannot live a life of peace, purpose, and authenticity without boundaries. They are the quiet guards at the gate of your life, ensuring that what comes in is worthy of being there. Without them, you become a host to every demand, every drama, and every distraction that passes by. With them, you create space for what truly matters, your growth, your joy, your health, and your dreams. Do not fear the discomfort of setting boundaries. Fear instead the slow erosion of your self-worth that happens when you live without them. Because when you choose self-respect over people-pleasing, you are not closing yourself off from the world. You are creating a life where the world meets you on terms that honor who you truly are. When you put yourself first, something extraordinary happens. Your life begins to ripple outward in ways you cannot fully predict. At first, it might seem as though you're making changes only for yourself. You might believe that prioritizing your well-being, your dreams, and your boundaries is a private act, affecting only your own experience. But human beings are deeply interconnected. Every choice you make, every shift in the way you live, sends silent signals into the world. Without saying a word, you begin to influence others, not by telling them what to do, but by showing them what's possible. Most people spend their lives looking outward for permission. They wait for someone else to show them that it's okay to rest, to say no, to pursue what they love. And then, one day, they encounter someone living with unapologetic self-respect, someone who radiates calm, clarity, and purpose. That person becomes a mirror reflecting back the truth they've been avoiding. You could live like this too. When you choose to put yourself first, you might not realize it, but you become that mirror for someone else. The ripple effect begins quietly. Your friends notice that you no longer overextend yourself to the point of exhaustion. They see you decline invitations without guilt, prioritize your health, and walk away from toxic situations without the need to justify it. At first, they might not understand. They may even resist. But deep down, they take note. They begin to wonder if they too could stop running themselves ragged for everyone else. Your family starts to notice the difference in your energy. You are no longer snappy or resentful because you are no longer depleted. You are present when you choose to be, and because you choose it, your presence feels warm and intentional. This shift subtly changes the dynamic. They too feel the weight lift when you are no longer carrying silent bitterness. Colleagues may notice that you work with more focus and less stress because you have learned the art of saying no to tasks that don't align with your priorities. They see you operate from a place of strength instead of constant urgency, and some will begin to model that behavior themselves. Without making speeches or forcing change, you are influencing the culture around you simply by the way you live. And perhaps the most profound ripple is the one that occurs in the people who silently look up to you, the ones you may not even realize are watching. Could be a younger sibling, a quiet coworker, or even a stranger who observes you from afar. They might see you choosing peace over chaos, authenticity over approval, and they begin to ask themselves why they are still living any other way. The truth is, when you put yourself first, you are not just improving your own life. You are giving others an example they desperately need. People are far more likely to follow what they see than what they are told. A life lived in alignment becomes a form of silent leadership. You stop trying to convince anyone, and instead your life speaks for you. There's another layer to this ripple effect. It reaches back to you. As you inspire others, they begin to rise in their own lives, and their growth feeds yours. You create a network of people who operate from a place of respect, balance, and purpose. And this environment strengthens your own commitment to living this way. The energy you put out comes back to you, multiplied. The ripple effect isn't always met with applause. Some people will see your shift and feel threatened by it. They may call you selfish, cold, or detached. This is not because you've done something wrong, but because your choices highlight the ways they've been neglecting themselves. Your courage to change becomes a mirror they are not yet ready to face. And that is okay. Not every ripple is meant to be welcomed immediately. Sometimes it takes time for others to soften to the idea that they, too, deserve to live differently. Even resistance has a way of transforming. The same people who once criticized your boundaries might one day ask how you set them. The same ones who doubted your priorities might later admire your discipline. Change has a way of unsettling people before it inspires them. The beauty of the ripple effect is that it doesn't require you to push, to preach, or to persuade. Your only job is to live authentically, to stand firmly in the truth that your life is yours to shape. From there, everything else unfolds naturally. You'll see it in the small ways. Someone saying no to something they would have once agreed to, a friend finally taking a day to rest, a family member pursuing something they've always wanted to do but were too afraid to try. When you put yourself first, you set into motion a quiet revolution. You remind the world that self-respect is not arrogance, that peace is not laziness, and that living fully is not something to be earned after everyone else is satisfied. Your example becomes a silent invitation for others to step into their own power. And perhaps one day someone will thank you, not because you told them how to live, but because you showed them it was possible. That is the true power of the ripple effect. Guilt is one of the most effective chains ever forged to keep people from putting themselves first. It is subtle, invisible, and often mistaken for virtue. You feel it in the pit of your stomach when you say no to a request, when you decline an invitation, or when you choose rest over obligation. It whispers, "You're letting someone down, you're not doing enough, you're being selfish." And because we have been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to how much we give, how much we endure, and how much we sacrifice, that whisper can feel like truth. But it's not truth, it's a script you were taught to follow. Guilt thrives on expectation. From childhood, you may have been praised when you put others before yourself, even if it meant discomfort or sacrifice. You learned that approval came when you made others happy, even at your own expense. Over time, you began to associate saying yes with being good and saying no with being wrong. This is how the guilt cycle takes root. It convinces you that you must constantly earn your place in people's lives by giving more than you can afford. The danger of this cycle is that it keeps you trapped in a life that doesn't truly belong to you. Every time you act out of guilt, you reinforce the idea that other people's comfort is more important than your own well-being. You become a prisoner of invisible obligations, tasks you never chose, relationships you no longer enjoy, routines that drain you instead of nourish you. Guilt convinces you that freedom is selfish and sacrifice is noble, even when that sacrifice leaves you empty. Breaking the guilt cycle begins with recognizing what guilt really is, a signal that you are stepping outside the role others have assigned you. It's not proof that you are doing something wrong. It's proof that you are doing something different. When you start prioritizing yourself, guilt will show up, not because you are failing, but because you are breaking the unspoken agreement that you will always put others first. This is where you must remind yourself, choosing yourself is not a betrayal. It is a reclamation. To dismantle the guilt cycle, you have to start questioning its source. Who told you that your needs should always come last? Who benefits when you run yourself into the ground to keep everyone else comfortable? Often you'll find that the guilt you carry does not even belong to you. It's been passed down, absorbed, and accepted without challenge. And once you see that, you can begin to let it go. One of the most powerful tools for breaking the guilt cycle is replacing guilt with gratitude. Instead of saying, "I feel bad for not doing this," you can say, "I'm grateful I chose what I needed today." Gratitude shifts your focus from what you think you owe others to what you are giving yourself. This small change rewires your mind to see self-prioritization as a gift rather than a crime. It also helps to remember that guilt and responsibility are not the same thing. Feeling guilty does not automatically mean you are responsible for someone's disappointment. Adults are responsible for their own feelings, just as you are responsible for yours. If someone feels upset because you set a boundary, that is their work to process, not yours to fix. You can offer kindness, but you are not required to erase your own needs to soothe their discomfort. Breaking free from guilt also means getting comfortable with being misunderstood. There will be people who cannot separate your self-care from selfishness. They will see your boundaries as rejection, your priorities as neglect, your freedom as rebellion. You cannot live your life trying to control how others interpret your choices. The truth is, their reaction says more about their expectations than about your worth. The first few times you act without giving in to guilt will feel uncomfortable. You may second-guess yourself. Wonder if you are making the right choice, or feel the urge to go back and make it right by overcompensating. This is normal. It's the old pattern trying to reassert itself. But each time you hold firm, the grip of guilt loosens. And eventually, what once felt selfish will feel natural. As the guilt fades, something beautiful happens. You begin to experience life without the constant pressure to justify yourself. You start making choices based on desire, intention, and alignment rather than obligation. Your yes becomes rare but genuine. Your no becomes steady and unapologetic. And most importantly, your life starts to reflect your values instead of someone else's expectations. The truth is, guilt is not a compass. It's a chain. It does not guide you toward what is right. It binds you to what is familiar. Breaking the guilt cycle is not about caring less. It's about caring in a way that includes yourself. It's about realizing that your well-being is not negotiable and that you can love others without abandoning yourself. When you stop living under the weight of guilt, you create space for joy, peace, and authenticity to grow. You stop performing for approval and start living for fulfillment. And perhaps most importantly, you finally understand that putting yourself first is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of freedom. The cost of neglecting yourself is not always immediate. It's rarely a sudden collapse. It's slower than that, quieter, almost invisible at first. It begins as a faint exhaustion you tell yourself will pass. It appears as small sacrifices that feel harmless, skipping a meal to meet a deadline, canceling a personal plan to help someone else, staying up late to finish work that was never truly yours to carry. These moments seem insignificant, but neglect rarely comes all at once. It accumulates. The cost becomes heavier. Your energy is no longer something you can summon at will. It is rationed, saved for only the most urgent demands. The things that once brought you joy start to feel like distant luxuries. Your patience thins, your creativity fades, and even your body begins to protest with aches, fatigue, or illness. What was once small and ignorable becomes the background noise of your life. And yet, because it happens gradually, you convince yourself this is just what life is. Neglect changes the way you see yourself. When you repeatedly put your own needs at the bottom of the list, you send yourself a quiet message. You don't matter as much as everything else. This message burrows deep into your identity until it's no longer just about your choices. It becomes who you believe you are. And from that place, it becomes even harder to choose differently. The cost of neglect is also relational. When you continuously drain yourself for the sake of others, you begin to show up in those relationships tired, irritable, and half-present. You may still be physically there, but the spark that once made your presence warm and alive is gone. Ironically, in trying to give more, you end up giving less because what you offer is no longer coming from abundance, but from depletion. Neglect also eats away at your dreams. It doesn't usually destroy them in one decisive blow. It just pushes them to later. Later when you have more time. Later when things calm down. Later when everyone else is okay. But later has a way of never arriving. Days turn into years, and one day you realize the thing you were going to do, the life you were going to live, has been lost to the endless demands of everything else. The hardest part about neglect is that it disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself you're doing the right thing by putting everyone else first. You justify it by pointing to the needs of your children, your partner, your work, your community. And yes, there are seasons in life where giving more of yourself is necessary. But when that season never ends, when it becomes the default, you cross an invisible line from healthy responsibility into self-erasure. There is also a physical price to pay. The body keeps score. Chronic stress, poor sleep, skipped meals, and constant tension eventually leave their mark. Your immune system weakens. Your ability to recover physically, mentally, emotionally slows down. What used to take a day to bounce back from now takes a week. And while the world may praise your sacrifice, your body silently absorbs the cost. Neglect doesn't just happen in dramatic acts of self-abandonment. It hides in the tiny, repeated choices to silence your own needs. The "I'll rest later" moments, the "I don't have time" excuses, the "it's not that important" dismissals. Each one is a withdrawal from your own life account. And just like with money, small withdrawals add up. Eventually, you find yourself overdrawn with nothing left to give. The tragedy is that most people only realize the true cost of neglect when they reach a breaking point. A health crisis, a burnout so severe it forces them to stop, a relationship falling apart because they were never fully present in it. It's only when something collapses that they see the truth. Neglect is not free. It always demands payment, and the longer you ignore it, the higher the price becomes. But here's the quiet truth. This cost is avoidable. You don't have to wait until you are empty to choose yourself. You don't have to hit a wall before you learn to rest. You can begin now in small ways to reverse the pattern. You can start by asking yourself every day, what do I need today to feel whole? And giving yourself permission to answer honestly. You can honor that answer, even when the world pulls at you from all sides. Because the cost of neglect is not just the loss of energy, health, or joy. It's the loss of the life you could have lived if you had treated yourself as worthy from the beginning. And no one can pay that debt back for you. Only you can decide that your well-being is not optional, that your dreams are not disposable, and that your needs are not negotiable. If you start making that decision now, the cost of neglect stops here. And what you gain in return, a life that feels like it's truly yours, is worth more than anything you've been giving it up for. Solitude is not the absence of life. It is the space in which life reveals itself. In a world that never stops speaking, solitude is often mistaken for loneliness. People fear it because they've been taught that being alone means being unwanted or forgotten. But solitude is not a punishment, it is a return. Return to yourself, to the quiet truth beneath the noise, to the person you are when no one else is watching. When you are constantly surrounded by others, by their voices, their needs, their energy, you begin to carry 1,000 invisible threads tying you to their expectations. Every conversation, every glance, every interaction pulls at you in subtle ways, shaping your thoughts and decisions. Without realizing it, you begin to live in reaction rather than intention. Solitude cuts those threads, if only for a while, giving you the freedom to breathe without interference. In solitude, you notice things you missed in the rush. The sound of your own breath, the texture of your thoughts, the way sunlight shifts across the floor during the day. These details seem small, but they are pieces of the reality you've been too distracted to see. And in seeing them, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You start to understand what you truly feel, what you genuinely want, what you've been carrying that doesn't belong to you. The power of solitude is that it strips away performance. Around others, even unconsciously, you adjust yourself. You speak differently, you hide certain feelings, you amplify others. But alone, there is no audience. There is no need to explain yourself, no pressure to be agreeable or impressive. You can simply exist without justification. And in that space, you meet a version of yourself that is honest, unedited, and whole. Solitude is also the birthplace of clarity. Problems that feel tangled and overwhelming in the noise of daily life often begin to unravel when you step back into quiet. Without the constant input of other people's opinions, your mind can follow its own threads of thought to their natural conclusion. Solutions appear not because you force them, but because you've created the mental stillness in which they can rise to the surface. It's important to understand that solitude is not isolation. Isolation is when you are cut off from others against your will, and it drains you. Solitude is when you step away by choice, and it restores you. One is emptiness, the other is fullness. The difference lies in intention. Choosing solitude is an act of nourishment, a way of filling yourself back up, so that when you return to the world, you do so from a place of strength rather than depletion. The resistance to solitude often comes from fear of what we might find in the silence. If you've been running from certain feelings, distracting yourself with constant activity, solitude will bring those feelings to the surface. That's part of its gift. It forces you to face what you've avoided, and in facing it, you take away its power. The emotions you fear most are often just messages waiting to be heard. Solitude gives you the courage and space to listen. Great works of art, profound insights, and deep personal transformations often begin in solitude. History is filled with examples of people who withdrew from the world for a time, not to escape it forever, but to return with something new to offer. They understood that without stepping away, without listening to the quiet voice inside, they would simply be repeating the noise they'd absorbed from everyone else. But solitude does not have to be grand or dramatic. It can be a few minutes in the morning before anyone else wakes up. Can be a walk with no phone, no destination, just the sound of your footsteps. It can be sitting in a room with a cup of tea, staring out the window and letting your thoughts wander. What matters is not the setting, but the intention, to be fully present with yourself without distraction. The practice of solitude changes you. You become less reactive, less dependent on external approval, less swayed by the moods and opinions of others. You start to trust yourself more because you've taken the time to know yourself. And from that trust comes a deeper sense of peace, the kind that doesn't vanish when circumstances shift, because it is rooted in who you are, not in what's happening around you. When you give yourself the gift of solitude, you reclaim a part of your life that is too often surrendered to noise. You remember that you are not just a collection of obligations, not just a role you play in other people's lives, but a living, breathing being with your own thoughts, desires, and rhythms. And in that remembering, you change not in a way that makes you separate from the world, but in a way that allows you to meet it more fully. Solitude is not a retreat from life. It is the space in which life's deeper truths are revealed. And once you have tasted the clarity, strength, and peace it offers, you will understand why some of the most profound moments in your life may happen when you are utterly, beautifully alone. Transformation begins the moment your actions and your values stop living in separate worlds. For many people, there is a quiet but constant tension between what they say matters to them and how they actually live. They may speak of wanting freedom, but chain themselves to commitments that drain them. They may value health, yet fill their days with habits that deplete the body. They may believe in creativity, but spend every spare moment numbing themselves with distractions. This misalignment doesn't just cause frustration, it fractures the self. When your actions and values are misaligned, life feels heavy. Every step forward takes twice as much energy because you are moving against your own truth. You feel the weight of unspoken compromises. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay when you want to go. And slowly, you become a stranger to yourself. The voice inside that once spoke clearly about what you wanted becomes muffled, buried under the noise of obligations and other people's expectations. Alignment changes this entirely. Alignment is the moment your choices start reflecting what you actually believe, not what you think you should believe. It's when you stop building a life based on appearances and start building one based on authenticity. This shift is not just philosophical, it is physical. You can feel it in your body when you make choices that match your values. There's a lightness, a release, a quiet certainty that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. But alignment requires honesty, and honesty is often uncomfortable. It means looking at the places in your life where you are living out of habit rather than intention. It means asking yourself, is this really mine? About the goals you chase, the rules you follow, the paths you walk. And sometimes the answer will be no. Sometimes you'll realize you've been living a version of life handed to you by someone else, a parent, a partner, a culture that told you who you were supposed to be. Transformation through alignment often requires letting go of relationships that pull you away from yourself, letting go of commitments that once made sense but no longer fit, letting go of identities that are too small for who you've become. This can be painful because each release feels like a small death. But in truth, it is a return to the space where your true self has been waiting all along. When your actions match your values, you stop fighting yourself. Energy that was once wasted on internal conflict is freed up to create, to connect, to live fully. Your decisions become simpler, not because life is without challenge, but because your inner compass is no longer spinning wildly in all directions. You know what matters, so you know what to do. One of the most surprising effects of alignment is how it changes the people around you. Some will resist it. They will feel threatened when you stop playing the role they've come to rely on. Others will be inspired quietly taking courage from your example. But in either case, alignment clarifies relationships. It reveals who is truly walking alongside you and who was only there for the version of you that you've outgrown. Alignment is not about perfection. It is not about living every moment in flawless accordance with your highest ideals. It is about returning again and again to the center of who you are. There will be times when you drift away from it, when fear, doubt, or convenience pull you off course. But once you have felt the difference between living in alignment and living without it, you will always find your way back. The transformation that comes from alignment is not just internal, it reshapes the world around you. The work you do begins to carry more meaning. The relationships you nurture feel deeper and more mutual. Even the challenges you face are approached with a different energy because you are no longer divided within yourself. You meet life whole, and life responds to that wholeness. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for the right time to live in alignment, imagining it will come after a promotion, after the children are grown, after they've saved enough money, after some distant milestone is reached. But alignment is not something you prepare for. It is something you step into now with what you have. It begins in the smallest of choices, choosing rest when you're exhausted, telling the truth when it's easier to stay silent, saying no to what drains you, even if it disappoints someone. Each aligned choice reinforces the next until the gap between who you are and how you live becomes so small that it disappears. That is transformation, not a sudden dramatic event, but the quiet, steady merging of the life within you and the life around you. When your actions match your values, you are no longer just existing. You are living with a kind of integrity that radiates outward, shaping your path in ways you could never fully predict. And in that space, your life stops feeling like something you're enduring and starts feeling like something you've chosen, something that is finally entirely yours. It all comes down to this. Your life is not a rehearsal, and there will never be a more perfect moment than now to begin living as if you truly matter. Every truth we've explored, every shift we've uncovered, points back to one unshakable reality. The way you treat yourself sets the tone for everything else. When you put yourself first, when you guard your energy, honor your boundaries, let go of guilt, tend to your inner needs, embrace solitude, and live in alignment with your values, you are not just changing your circumstances, you are rewriting the very story of who you are. The world will try to keep you distracted, indebted to its demands, and compliant with its pace. But you are not here to live someone else's version of your life. You are here to live yours, fully, unapologetically, and with the kind of presence that can only come from knowing you have chosen yourself. And here is the quiet miracle. When you do, everything else begins to shift. You find yourself surrounded by people who respect your space because you respect it. You discover opportunities that once seemed impossible because you finally have the clarity to see them. You begin to wake up each day, not with the heaviness of survival, but with the lightness of purpose. This is how you change your life forever, not with one grand leap, but with 1,000 small intentional choices that all say the same thing. I am worth it. My life is mine, and I choose to live it well. Walk forward from here with that knowing in your bones. Guard it, live it, let it shape you, and watch as the life you've been waiting for steps out to meet you.